I figured it was about time to talk a little bit about gua sha tools and to give you my insights into the shapes, sizes, materials, weight, and general feeling of the tool. And I'm going to be referring to the gentle movements of facial gua sha, but also the strong scraping you might need on the body. So if you've ever wondered about which gua sha tool to buy, keep watching. This is one of the most common questions I'm asked, and rightly so, because the market for gua sha tools is saturated and it's difficult to understand what the strange shapes and materials mean and how they're used. We've come a long way from copper coins, which are traditionally used, and there's considerable choice in terms of what the tool is made from. At the moment, jade and quartz are popular, but there's also materials like obsidian, bienstone, water buffalo horn, steel, copper, plastic, porcelain, and even seashells. And if you listen to me more, or you read my books, or you study with me, you'll soon see my opinion on tools, and it's no secret. My message has been very consistent over the past 25 years, and lots of people fixate on tools. For me, it's actually one of the least important parts of gua sha. So while it's important to find a tool that you're comfortable with and feels good to hold, which has the right weight and size for what you're doing, and also which glides smoothly on the skin, it's not the tool, but what you do with the tool, which is really gua sha. If you've got a fancy tool and you don't know what to do with it, you're not going to do much. And I mean no more than just dragging it around on the surface of the skin. So let's look at some basic criteria which you can use to judge whether one particular tool is the one for you. So let's start with the obvious. Is the tool breakable? It doesn't matter how marvelous the tool is when you drop it on the floor and it cracks and splits into two or smashes into little pieces, then it's not good. My clinic is pretty similar now to what it used to be before when I was in North Africa. And the tiled floors were the gua sha tool killers. And I've lost so many gua sha tools to that floor, or both floors. And it's really easy to drop a tool. If it's made of porcelain, jade, quartz, or other minerals, the chances are that it won't survive the fall. And sure, you can keep the tool in a special place. Perhaps it has a special box, a special container. But there'll be one moment when it's on the table or on the sink and you get distracted and smash. So there are huge choices of fragile tools, especially aimed at facial gua sha. And as long as you resign yourself to one day losing that precious facial friend to a domestic accident, then they're fine tools. And if you're looking for a less fragile gua sha tool, then materials like plastic, metal, resin would fit the bill. And in fact, when I travel, I just take with me a porcelain spoon, probably the cheapest spoon you can buy. I think it cost me like €1 or $1. And it's it's a Chinese soup spoon that people would have their food with. And if that breaks, then that breaks, and it's not such a big issue. I can just buy another one immediately. So let's continue with another question you should ask yourself before you buy a gua sha tool. Is that tool cleanable? And you might be thinking, well, they all are, aren't they? And yes, they are. But if you're ever going to use your gua sha tool on someone else, then it's got to be cleaned properly. And by cleaning properly, I mean it's got to be disinfected in some way. If it's just you, you can just wash it in dishwashing liquid and it's not an issue. But if it's not you, you need to explore the ways to clean the tool. And after use, microscopic traces of skin and blood cells remain on the tool. And, it's not very pleasant to then use the tool or have the tool used on you. So there's a certain procedure which I put together a few years ago to comply with the professional disinfection standards. And you can find that on the YouTube channel. There'll be a link in the comments. And it's basically using bleach. So environmentally, it's not exactly ideal. There are hospital-grade disinfection wipes, which are also very useful. And anyway, the more you clean the tool, the more it will degrade, and some materials degrade faster than others. So water buffalo horn, for example, is a great natural material for a gua sha tool, and is incredibly common throughout East Asia. But you try and clean it, and it cracks and bends. Metal tools are perhaps the material which can be disinfected the best, and they're often used professionally, especially in the world of physiotherapy. So you'll find actually in China, you're going to find that the disinfection is created depending on where you are, basically. It might be boiling, it might be using some bleach, it might be just wiping the tool with a 99.9% antibacterial wipe. There are many, many ways that I've come across. The next question to ask is the tool the right size for you? Most commercially available gua sha plates range in thickness from between 0.3 and 1 centimeter, and how comfortable this will be depends on your hand size. In general, the thinner the tool, the greater the mechanical load on your hand and your arm. However, thickness also implies weight, and although the tool should have a certain balanced weight, so that as you use it, there's a certain momentum to the movement, if it's too heavy, then it will cause hand fatigue. As far as shapes go, you can take your pick between things like fish-shaped or angel wings or butterfly. It could be square, rectangular, triangular, round, and any variation of these. Some metal tools look a bit like torture instruments, really. But in the end, the shapes are just that. They're just shapes. You could probably use any one of them to do gua sha, and they would do exactly the same thing. Sure, it may look convenient to have a dip or a bump in the tool here and there, so that it appears to match a specific body part or a technique, but it's really not necessary. So the key is to choose the shape, size, and weight that's comfortable for you and your hands. Now, the next question you should ask yourself is it smooth or round enough? A gua sha tool has to be smooth on all sides so that it creates just the right amount of friction on the skin. There are some tools which have edges which are just too pointed or sharp, and which feel less comfortable when scraped over the skin. Mineral-based tools like jade, quartz, bjornstone, and obsidian are often smooth purely down to the production process, but other materials like buffalo horn, porcelain, metal, resin, and wood, they vary in how appropriate they are to be used in gua sha. The sides of a natural material like buffalo horn can actually be scraped with sandpaper, which is quite common in Asia. And some tools have a jagged edge or dull saw-like serrated section on one side, which is aimed at a specific part of the face, for example. There's a certain gentle technique involved with its use, so it's not supposed to be smooth in that part of the tool. I've got loads of tools, they're everywhere. If I open my desk drawer here, there are like 6 of them just sitting there. They're going to be all kinds of different colors. There's jade and porcelain and quartz and resin, and there's one in front of me, in front of the screen. If I were to use the tools around me right now, I know that some will require more effort than others. This is because some have rounder, smoother edges and feel really smooth on the face, for example, and some have slightly sharper edges, which are fine on the face, but dig in a fraction deeper in the back to cause less effort when using gua sha. And another factor that might be quite useful is the temperature of the tool. The question is, do you want a tool which always feels cold on the skin? So for example, jade, that's an obvious one, and other mineral-based materials too. So they're always pretty cold to touch. They warm up with the heat of the action of gua sha, and also by being in your hand, but there's a definite cold tendency to jade. When I was in North Africa, the kind of hot Sahara summer, jade would be the perfect material, but in midwinter, when the heating is trying to keep you warm, it might not be what you want. Now, mineral-based stones can be warmed up, and they can be used on the body like a type of hot stone therapy. Plastic, resin, wood, and buffalo horn tools are generally more stable in their temperature and often feel warmer. Now, if you're going to use the tool on other people, you have to ask yourself, is the tool professional looking? Does it look appropriate to what you're doing? You may be thinking that if someone's paying you money for a treatment, then you probably don't want to be using a porcelain soup spoon, but some kind of quartz or jade fancy looking tool. Well, for those of you that do follow me, you'll know my answer to that one. The soup spoon is a bit like my trademark, actually. And so yes, I use it professionally. I use a spoon in every aspect of gua sha and always have. Sometimes it might be the same as you find in a local Chinese restaurant, but sometimes they're slightly different, but they're always a spoon, and they're not specifically made for gua sha, because this is basically where gua sha comes from. It basically comes out of the kitchens of rural people in the last few centuries in China and other East Asian and Southeast Asia countries. Now, if you are treating professionally and you want to use, for example, metal tools or other tools that you want to use, you have to remember that professional treatments require professional cleaning. So that means disinfection. So you have to bear that in mind in the tool that you're going to use when you're treating professionally. It might be different to the tool you might be using if you're just treating yourself. So in summary, there's a huge variety of gua sha tools which you can choose from, but you've got to think about what would be the most appropriate for you in your situation. Most people overthink this part of gua sha. It just has to be smooth, comfortable, and the right size and weight for your hand to hold. You don't need to get stressed about the rest of it. You get a tool, you try it out. If it doesn't feel right, you use that experience to get a better one for you. It can be trial and error until you find the right one. And remember, it's not the tool that changes the body or your face. It's what you do with the tool.